What a way to open up. Welcome to Be Wealthy, Brett, our live stream we do every Wednesday at 4 o'clock Mountain. It's always weird to say that. I am actually currently, Cole told me that I had to get a much better view. So this is our little Hawaii background. I tried to be outside for a much better background. The internet doesn't work out there, but excited for our first live stream of 2024. Ton of things to talk about. The biggest one was we sent an email today kind of talking about Airbnb, and I made a post the end of last year, like December 20th. It feels like 1,000 years ago. It was like 5 days ago. Talking about Airbnb, and for a long time, I actually have not been a fan. And so I want to explain a little bit about that today. So if you've got questions, you can jump into the chat. Hold on. I need to, Cole, if there's anything I need to do, if you want to throw that in the chat. I've also got to go over here and see if I can manage to get all of the tools working at the same time. How am I going to prop this up on something? Might be a little challenging to get this set up today. Let me see. Live. That's going to be probably a challenge on the, let's just see, maybe from here, kind of angling in. Well, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. All right, we're only going to be live on YouTube today. So for a long time, I'm talking about Airbnb, and no one is more motivated to figure it out and then to have it work than this guy. Now, full disclosure, I do own a place in Belize that you could say as an Airbnb. I didn't buy it for investment purposes. I bought it because I wanted to have a place there. I love the place. Does it make money? Yes. Would I ever buy it as a real investment? No, because the economics are not as good, right? The money that I make, the actual return on my investment is not as good as other things that I do. Now, what makes it work is that I spend somewhere between 3 to 6 weeks per year, and I spend 3 to 6 weeks per year there. And so that, coupled with some of the return that I get, makes sense. I love the complex, and it's more of a lifestyle play than a financial play. And I think if you think about Airbnb in that context, if you're using it for a lifestyle play, you've got a location that you love to go to, you'd rather stay in a condo or a home as opposed to go stay at a hotel or another Airbnb, and you're going to be there some years 6+ weeks per year. And I've ran the math in a lot of the locations I go to. The place that I'm staying in, it's a hotel, but they're wholly owned condos that they choose. You can put them in the rental pool at Marriott. It's Marriott Autograph, actually, which is the same program that runs my place in Belize. And they do a really, really great job. Now, they charge you a lot of fees to do it, but it's one of those plays where it can make a lot of sense. And so it makes a lot of sense if your usability is up. If you're at that 6+ weeks, Airbnb could be a great option. And so I carry a significant amount of rental property, and I've looked to find, is there that operator of the majority of my real single family homes in greater Phoenix, Arizona? So if I could make it work, there is no doubt I'd be highly motivated to take all of my rental properties and be able to make more money with them, right? So I don't come to this with saying I'm anti it. In fact, I've tried to find the model that works. But every time when I've ran the true math, and there's some variables we'll talk about, when I run the true math, that it doesn't make as much sense as a single family investment. One of the biggest reasons why is the opportunity cost. Opportunity cost of both your time, primarily your time, but also your money. So I wanted to go and share my screen from the post I made. Let me grab this. It should be this one here. Perfect. All right. So here was the post I made. Here's the post I made. So I made this post about Airbnb, and this YouTube creator, Shelby Church, went out. She had an Airbnb. California was actually changing its laws. So they're just making it more restrictive. There's a few specific things that are happening. You can check out the video. The link's right here. It's on our YouTube channel, Be Wealthy Brett. And so the whole idea was the math never worked. It's just people now are being forced to ask different questions, right? As more and more players have entered the Airbnb game, price has gone down, right? It's more competitive. I saw this up at my cabin, right? You could see it, you'll see lots and lots of folks that were around the $500 per night range for their Airbnb. And as more and more people came in, that number came down from 500 to 450 to 425 to 400 to 350, 300, all the way down. And it becomes this game where it's a race to the bottom. And so a lot of cities are putting in regulation. Some of that's positive, right? If you limit the amount of them, you can kind of match supply and demand and find the right balance. So I'm not all anti-Airbnb. I'm just very, very pro math. And so let's look at some of the comments here. Here's someone says, hey, it depends on the market, depends on the owner. It's pretty typical in any aspect of business. Sure. And the argument I'm making is the math doesn't always work. Yes, in business, there's a lot of places that math don't work, primarily by bad business owners that don't know how to actually do math, right? But one of the biggest challenges so many businesses fail is most people do not understand business. They focus on the old E-Myth, right? The E-Myth, the book by Michael Gerber, talked about Sarah, this pie maker who loved making pies. And so everyone she knew, she'd bake these incredible apple pies. She'd give them out to all of her neighbors, all of her friends. They said, you should go in the baking business. So she goes and gets in the baking business only to find out the world of baking has absolutely nothing to do with the world of business. And that how you make money as a bakery is actually takes all the enjoyment out of making the pies. That beautiful art of creating it came down to inventory management and driving down costs and efficiency, right? And cost of goods sold and expense ratios. It became this whole different language. So businesses fail because people just don't understand math fundamentally, and they don't want to go learn it, and they rely on their passion initially, and they're not growing their skills as a business owner to actually know the mechanics that drive the business. So why it's not entirely wrong here, starting with the best of intentions, it did feel like Airbnb changed in the very early days. It seemed like there were more professional operators. They were really running it like a hotel. There were usually amenities, things they were providing. And it's definitely gotten to where it's not the case as much. And it says some people didn't buy it right. A lot of people are paying market value. I'll pay the total premium. I want actually the flipped model that's even above market because I want this incredible property that I'm going to Airbnb out. And I have not seen they're killing it. But here's Cam Wade says we're killing it. And I love that I actually know Cam. Here's the reality. What does killing it mean? Because if it means a high gross, right, like a lot of real estate agents, I'll tell you, they love the gross number, right? I'm grossing $10 million a year in commission income, but I'm dead broke and I'm making absolutely zero. And so if killing it, if there's someone out there listening to this and you could prove it with your P&L that we could actually tie to a tax return. No, I don't care about seeing how much money you make, but I just want to prove you're actually making money in the way you say you are, and it's showing up on your tax return. Because usually when I ask that question, I get a lot of, I'm reinvesting in my business. For us real estate agents and investors, we are not Amazon. There's not a reinvestment. There is a capital expenditure. I had to buy an AC unit, but there is not a reinvestment as you look at Airbnb, unless you're buying new furniture, which is one of the mistakes, right? If you're all that furniture you bought in the very beginning, if you spent $50,000 ringing out of furniture, number one, how did you factor that into your returns? And number two, how long are you estimating it takes you to actually burn through that furniture, right? How long does that couch, how many assets does that couch get before it has to be thrown away? And there's a number. The really great operators are taking a percentage of their nightly revenue, and that's driving that. So the percentage of the nightly revenue is actually driving a percentage that's going towards a budget. So, hey, we take 3% of every nightly revenue. And once we've collected enough money to replace everything in there, we go ahead and the items that are really distressed, we replace those on a consistent basis, right? The pillows, all of the mattresses, everything's going to need some replacement. It's likely going to be much greater than what you use at your home because there's typically more people staying in Airbnbs than there are at your house. Why? Because we travel with other people. We want to go to a vacation spot and hang out with our friends. So I love some of these other comments. I've been sitting a lot and looking to make an entry into STRs. And by the way, there's short-term rentals. There's midterm rentals where you've got that professional, like the traveling nurse type trades where you're renting your place out for 6 to 12 months on a contract. I love that model. That's what Brad's doing. Keeger, he's got a great investment business, but he's out there. He's got 19. But look at his comments at the end, right? He was making more money in Airbnb in short term, which is correct. Right. And yes, maybe you net slightly more, but he goes and looks at his time, right? The opportunity cost. He says in here, I converted them. I want to convert them because the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? That all too often you go out and see that the juice isn't worth the squeeze as you go and factor in your time, right? And if you paid someone to do all the things you're doing, when you get to scale, someone you're paying them. And so you're choosing it. Dominic is basically got people that are making millions and millions of dollars per year. I'd love to see that math. If you want to share that, I would love to see someone making millions of dollars per year in Airbnb that's not some specialized, like we cater to golf guys and we have these 3 golf villas and we have a whole private experience. I'd love to see the traditional Airbnb. Jenny is a fan, so I'm open, Jenny. I'd love to see, I do see the grosses. I'm only interested in nets. Nets minus your time. And if you were not in it, right? If you want to show me an economic model that doesn't have you in it, you've hired someone to do all the facets of it, so you're an investor. And I think it's a really interesting discussion to have is, as an investor, what's your goal? Are you looking to go place your money into something and then do additional work and throw hours at it? Because there's 3 main resources in life: money, talent, and time. And so I would prefer, right, in a different phase of our life, we're going to want to use a different type of resource, maybe money, maybe talent, maybe time. I was blessed with no money and tremendous amounts of time. I also had no talent. So I had a lot of time, no talent, no money. So what resource did I invest? I invested all of my time in making money and time investing in myself so I could get better and get better results in the future as I invested my time. Today, right, I've developed some talent. I've got some skills. I prefer to invest my money sometime, but usually I want to use influence, right? I want to use my abilities to help influence that business. And so I think differently about it today. So when I look to invest money, when I'm looking to put my capital into something that's going to pay me something back, the old rule of 72, you take whatever the rate of return you think you're going to get, you divide that by, take that return divided by 72 tells you how many years roughly it takes you to double your money. So if we're trying to get 10% of our money, 72 divided by 10, 7.2 years, our money should double every 7.2 years. Don't worry, we just got a cat on the patio. Might hear a rooster. Could get totally insane out here as we live stream on Kauai. So that gives you an idea if I'm investing my money now. So that would be a completely passive investment. I would want to invest my money. I'm going to make a 10% return. I want to make it as passive as possible. So when I look to invest, I'm not looking to create another job. Now, there are opportunities when we invest our money where we could be more involved. Like that'd be an example of a business. If I buy into a company, there's things I need to do there. I have certain responsibilities to the business. So I invested at 100 or 200,000 run, or someone else going to run. That's a different conversation. I wonder if I can move that cat. Let's see how this goes. I'm trying to move this cat. Sorry, cat. I am back. Sorry, that was a completely humane cat moving live on live stream. Anything's possible in Kauai. Andrew Franklin, my good buddy out of Houston, Texas, is in a fantastic business. One of the most dominant agents there. We have a few that work for us after all the math figured out, especially when you talk about the taxes, right? The cost seg portion of it is valid. But most importantly for me is the last sentence, right? The family use, right? I would only own more of if the property could stand out from the competition. I thought I wanted to earn 50 and quickly realized it wasn't a good idea. That's where I landed. I've got the place that I use for a lot of personal use. When I'm not there, why not rent it out? But if I could find a way to turn the 100 rentals that I have into Airbnbs that all made sense, I would take a look at it. Talks about LLCs. Yes, you should absolutely separate your risk in an LLC. Separating a vacation rental, I would want a commercial property. You want to really get a smart asset attorney that looks at your assets, the risks, on your level of comfort. So many attorneys out there just do the put one property in every LLC, and that may be best for some, but not all. And you need to understand the risks, the positives and the negatives of doing it that way. We do have an attorney that we love so reach out to us, DM us. We can connect you. We love the attorney we use, and they're going to give you specific advice. It's not going to be this one size fits all because your risk tolerance might be different. Meaning, are you willing to do you want to put one property in every LLC, recognizing there's additional bookkeeping costs and there's other things you're going to have to do to manage that LLC in terms of a financial reporting standpoint? Or would you rather look at it like, hey, I'm willing to put a certain amount of money at risk, maybe $100,000 or $250,000 at risk in equity in each LLC. You also have to look at where the mortgages, because mortgages are one of your kind of protections from a creditor perspective. If you get a judgment against you, most creditors aren't going to want to come after that LLC if it has debt on the real estate, because the juice kind of just really isn't worth the squeeze. But LLCs are one of the things you definitely want to be cognizant of, especially if I had an Airbnb. That is something I would put a different LLC for every one, because I believe there's more risk in an LLC just because you've got multiple people coming in and out more frequently. My brother Nick, our Be Wealthy network partner, love that guy, talks about it. The market does dictates the results. Look, I've heard a lot of people crushing the Smoky Mountains, but I always look at more and more people are doing it, and they're making less and less, right? It's one of those challenges, right? Hers are doing okay. One guy makes fun of me and my AI. Today, the AI, I almost look tired and exhausted, and I've never been more fired up. Had an amazing dive today at Kaloa Landing with my boys out scuba diving. Kind of crazy. Scuba diving, live streaming. It's a wild ride out there. So any questions you've got, throw them in the chat. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I did want to share just that post, and kind of it got traction online, and it was an interesting thing to see how people are thinking about it. And I think it's also people start justifying it, right? We make a decision emotionally as people, and then we go back and we justify it with logic. And I think it's really hard for some folks to admit, hey, I might have gotten Airbnb and maybe it doesn't make sense as much. You don't have to justify it. I've bought some rental properties that were long-term rentals that I loved them, and they were great for a period of time or a season. There are certain real estate you want to own forever, but some things, if it's not performing, the area is changing, or maybe your noise appetite or your annoyance threshold has changed, and you want to sell those and reposition those into something that makes more money, less noisy. I think that makes a ton of sense. When I look out at all of our real estate investments that I own, I actually like the investments that are the most consistent and the quietest. A great example of that, I've got some natural gas royalties. In terms of noise, right? You buy the mineral rights in the ground, just mineral rights in the ground, right? You could buy the land, you could buy the mineral rights. Those could be sold together. Those could be sold separate. So the mineral rights in the ground, it's a pretty non-noisy. I'm buying performing mineral rights. So every month you can see what the previous check stubs were. You can see the price of natural gas. And so you can tell pretty much what your check stub is going to be as long as the gas price is the same into the future. There is literally zero to do with that investment. You're buying it. The only variable would be, what does natural gas do? As it goes up, you win. As it goes down, you lose. But as they drill new wells, it gets really, really exciting. That's an example. I have a lot of hard money loans out where I lend others money. I love lending. It's a very quiet business with very great returns. You don't have the appreciation. I love real estate. One of my favorite hard asset real estate investments, triple net commercial buildings, not office today. I've got a strip center out in Alabama that I literally never talk about. It's probably my favorite asset. It pays every single month. The tenants are on 5 to 10-year leases with 3% annual rent increases. They've all renewed. The shopping center is doing great. And it's just one of those investments that I don't think about. It pays me every single month. So I think we're all looking for more of those. How do you go create passive income? Warren Buffett says you have to find a way for your money to work as you sleep. Otherwise, you will work until you die. So how can you make more passive income? I'm going to take a couple questions here. And what I suggest, when you suggest not using a platform or have your own website, I think, look, you're going to need bookings. If I was entering the game and I'm not going, here's Angela's question here. If you're going to play the game, you need bookings. I wouldn't worry about the fees. Yes, the fees are annoying and affect your costs, but I think your occupancy rate is going to drive profitability more than anything else. So I would be on every possible platform. You've got to have incredibly high reviews. And I am far from the expert at it. I would actually, before I even started doing it, I would run the real math and I would make sure, no matter what, if on the off chance I'm wrong and Airbnb doesn't work, do you have a plan? Does it work as a long-term rental, or is your only option to sell it to recover your cash? So I would be thinking about it in that way. But if I was going to do it, I believe I would get every corner of the math. I would understand my occupancy rate I needed. I would understand the average nightly rate I was going to average throughout the year, knowing I was going to have peaks during holiday times. I was going to have some downtime in the off season or the shoulder season of whatever the season is in my area. I would want to know all of those things. I would want to look at my long-term debt rate. Okay, I've got a 6.5% interest rate. And after all expenses, does that make sense? Is that right? And if all that math worked, I'd want to have a backup plan. I would be good with it, provided it works in your market. I've got to take this 1 second. I have an amazing call here. I'm back. I am back. Housekeeping at the hotel. All of the incredible things happening. Cole, got a question here coming from online. What do I look for from buying triple net commercial? Any particular type of tenant? I would stay out of office today, where that would have been the thing until COVID, but now you're seeing a lot of office prices that are coming down, and it'll actually be interesting to see where we go with office, right? Do we reposition it and make it residential? How do we think about office in the future? Can we turn those into apartments, or is there another use? As it looks like a lot of the workers and a lot of the labor is not going to go back into offices and will remain remote. So what happens there? I love triple net buildings like the fast food restaurant on a hard corner. So you've got Main and Main streets, any of the four corners there. The fast food, I don't believe ever is going away. I like the gas station, the car wash. There's a few types of triple net commercial buildings that also have additional tax incentives around cost segregation. In other words, more of their building components you can depreciate faster. So car washes and oil and lube and things like that, storage, have a much higher depreciation than other ones. And so I would look at those types of things. But I want a retail center on a corner that's kind of neighborhood specific. You're trying to look for trends and things that aren't going to go out of business, but storage yards, small industrial, and a lot of commercial properties can be triple net, but I absolutely love triple net commercial. What math do investors miss on Airbnbs? Some of the math I went through earlier, but specifically, what are your hard costs if it's never rented? Right, that property, and I would increase the utility bills to what they will actually be when it's being operated as an Airbnb. But I would go get my real costs. What does it cost me on an annualized basis to actually run this property? And then I would go look at my competition, because you could see what they're doing. You might even be able to ask them, hey, how did it perform? Or if not, you can see what the next 90 days look like. So you can start looking for patterns, or what are their occupancy? What are their nightly rates? And pretty quickly, you're going to build out an economic formula on, hey, here's how much I'm going to bring in income. I'm going to bring in $100,000 in income. I'm going to have $70,000 expenses, and I'm going to net $30,000. Do the same thing, and I would just compare it to a single family and see where the numbers are. The biggest difference is your time, right? Are you going to spend the time managing that short-term rental? On the long-term investment side, when you're looking at a long-term rental, about 35% of your rent will be used for your costs. That's what I call your expense load. That's going to be taxes, insurance, management, HOA, insurance, taxes, all of those things. Tax, insurance, HOA, management. What else did I miss? Taxes, insurance, HOA, management, vacancy and repairs. All of those things run about 35%. And so on a single family side, you can see it. Let me give an example here. Let me switch here. I'll show you how I think when I look at a single family rental, what's going through my head. And so let's assume I bought a house for $300,000. I put $60,000 down. Here's our closing costs. We can adjust that. I'm assuming, and I ran this in my mortgage calculator, I put in a 6.5% mortgage, which I believe is lower than what you could get today. So in other words, this is showing you the best possible scenario. That would be about $1,500 a month is the mortgage. That's like $1,512 on a 6.5% mortgage. This property bought it for $300,000. It rents I put for $2,300 a month, and I kind of went off Arizona values. I put an annual insurance of $1,200, property tax of $1,000. That might be light based on some states. That's probably even light for Arizona. I was trying to paint a rosy picture, actually. I assume, right, when I look at a rental property, that over the course of a year, this is on a long-term rental, that I will spend 1 month of the rent, $2,300 in this case, on repairs throughout the year. It is really hard to do that year in, year out as a landlord, but it is possible. That should be your target goal. I also assume that I'm going to pay 10% in property management, right? You might have a better deal than that, but I'm going to assume I'm going to pay 10%. Lastly, I'm assuming that property is going to be vacant 1 month of every single year. That property will be vacant. This is a long-term rental. If that happens, right, here's my net operating income. I'm taking my rent here minus all my costs. My cash flow is $40. Awesome. I got a cap rate of 5.95. Again, people have got to think through that. If you're borrowing money at 6.5, what does that mean? I'm making this 5.95, this cap rate. I'm making that on my $60,000 I put down. A cap rate always assumes all cash. So in this case, we didn't pay all cash, but it's a good indicator of the type of or the amount of money we might make. So every dollar I borrowed, the remaining $240,000, I'm losing just over 0.5%, right? I'm losing 5.05% on every dollar. So 50 basis points, however you want to look at it, every dollar I borrowed, I'm losing. So my cash on cash return, this property now when debt rates were, if this was a great property in Arizona and you went back, I had 30-year mortgages at 3.5% interest. Could I make this work? Well, totally. And I bought a ton of stuff. Can I make that work today? No, because I'm going to have a lot of negative cash flow. If I change the interest rate to 3.5%, that lowers my annual mortgage to $1,077. Let me just do some math here on the side. 1,077 times 12 gives you now look at the mortgage goes to 12,924. Now, right? Well, now it's a totally different game. I went from making $40 annually to $5,000 a year. Now, if this was on the best part of town in an incredible location in Phoenix, Arizona, and I could have got a 3.5% mortgage, I would have bought this property. It operates right here. My cash on cash returns at 8 cap. It's still the same cap right here because all the rent's the same because it's driven off the purchase price, assuming all cash. So this right here, this would make a lot of sense. Why? I'm making over 2% on every dollar I borrowed. On my down payment, I'm making 8%. And over time, right over 30 years, the tenants are going to pay this off, and then I get the entire cash flow. So I would love a deal like this, but we've got to change our buy box. So how does this relate to Airbnb? When you think about what people are looking at, they're making decisions, they're paying higher interest rates, insurance costs have gone up, taxes have gone up, vacancy's gone down, and you got all this competition, and they're bringing in regulations, but people are fighting on the past and what was rather than focusing on today and what they could do in their portfolio that would make it radically different. So I love sharing just different ways to think about it. And I'd love it if you think I'm wrong or I'm crazy, I would love to hear in the chat, because this is a open dialogue and I do not claim to know absolutely everything. Angela says we're in a golf resort area, and there are some properties that we long-term. When the U.S. Opens, we short-term that year. Look, there are things in each market, right? If you're outside of Coachella or you're outside some crazy, not to have the young people or Cole tell me what kind of festivals, all the rage with the kids these days, but there might be something that drives it. But again, the math would support it, Angela. The math that you have would show you this makes a ton of sense. Look, this is how much money we're making per year, how much time we're spending on it. And this investment makes a lot of sense from a financial return and a time perspective. It makes a lot of sense. If that's the case, totally, you should do it. We should all be doing things that make the most sense. The crazy thing is when you're making decisions on things that don't make sense and you're justifying it because your neighbor thinks it's cool, or worse, you just have no idea what winning and losing even is. And that's a whole other discussion. But most problems in life are math problems. If you understand the math, you can fix it. Brendan Conley, one benefit of a short-term rental is the short-term rental in the tax code. Reducing your W-2 income tax, the cost saving without being a real estate professional is a great advantage. Now, I'm not a CPA. I'm not that cool to even play one on TV. I don't understand fully, because to have passive losses that are not limited by the tax code, you need to become a real estate professional. So I do not believe, and I can check my CPA, that you can take all of the losses against your W-2 income without being a real estate professional. Now, the argument they might be making for you, Brendan, is that you are a real estate professional because you're generating so much income from a short-term rental and you're spending all that time managing it. And that's how you're qualifying for a professional real estate investor status. But you're going to need the status in order to not have the limitation on the amount of cost seg. So I think your logic, I think we're going to get to the same place. I'm just going to give it more technical answer. But I still would not buy it. If you're only buying it for the taxes and you're willing to lose money just to get taxes, I'll make you an incredible offer, Brendan. You send me every dollar you give me, I'll kick you back 40 cents, and I'll do it as often as you want. So you send me $100,000 in marketing, and you could advertise our live stream, which would be sick. and you give me 100 grand and I'll give you 40,000 back and you've got a sick tax loss. It'll be awesome, right? So you would never want to do that. That wouldn't make sense. And so I always caution people, if your investment strategy is investing for taxes, you should do that. The Brendan opportunity, which is you send Brett your money and he will give you a loss of, I'll give you a total loss on that. We'll make you an investor or an advertiser on our podcast. You will get to write that entire thing off and we will aim customers to your thing. That's a hilarious joke, but it doesn't exactly work like that. The taxes should be an ancillary benefit, not a factor in the investment decision. In other words, it should enhance the investment, but not be the entire reason. The investment should be able to stand on its own. 2024, until anything changes in long-term debt rates, I'm very selective on what I buy on the single-family residential side. I'm looking at some commercial stuff. I will sell some of our properties on the residential side just that were naturally at that place. I'll move those, possibly 1031 exchange. I might pay the tax and put those in an opportunity zone. Super, super complicated tax strategy there. But likely if I sell them, I'm looking to get bigger property on the investment side, like a triple net commercial building or something quieter, a natural gas royalty. But debt, primarily I will be looking at going after making some either hard money investments or buying long-term 30-year, 20-year, whatever's left on a mortgage. I love buying that long-term, buying notes. And so I'll probably do more of that. Outside of that, looking at some business opportunities to grow, to buy some other companies. And some of my investments will probably be more on the business side in 2024. Cool. One last question, and then we will jump to the next section here. I do have, I want to chat about some takeaways I had from 2024, 2023, and what I'm looking forward to in 2024. Making sure I have my brief notes here and I nail everything. Zach Willis, since it's challenging to find great cash on cash properties, would you adapt to grab equity and expect future cash on cash return with increased rents? You know, I like where you're going, Zach. I mean, I get the idea. Everyone says rents have never gone down, and that's an incorrect statement. Rents have gone down. I've owned property. Actually, even a year ago, the price I got on some of my rentals, and the tenants moved out. They were there 12 months, and now I'm releasing them. They're down a little. It's not a lot. It's just because we got a really high price a year ago, and we're not getting quite as much now. It's off like $100. I did see a stat that was proven that rents over any three-year period in history have never gone down, over a 3-year period. So over the long haul, we all agree rents will go up. I do not like placing my investment where I have to have a refinance to make it work. What I'm doing is I'm putting more cash down to make the investment work. If I'm going to buy anything, I need it to cash flow, and depending on purchase price, but my bare minimum is $400 or $500 a month. So I will just put additional down payments to make that cash flow work, or pay cash today until I can make sense of it. On the other side, right, the cash on cash opportunity just might be a different asset class. Take a look at hard money lending or debt. You could see really, really high yields there without it being a hard asset. So you might want to take a look at that. I don't have thoughts on land development. I have buddies that develop land. They crush it. I love it. It's just not my play. Everything I buy in terms of investment, I want it to cash flow. And so I am a cash flow guy through and through. 100% of my net worth is tied up in assets that absolutely cash flow. And so that is it's completely my jam. I always tell the story. I have a couple different buddies, right? I have one buddy, both buddies are worth about $50 million. Very, very wealthy guys. And they live two radically different lives. One guy has all of his money tied up in land, owns tons and tons of land, doesn't cash flow. And it is, in that ranching world. And the crazy part, very, very wealthy guy, but only on paper, right? All the land. But in terms of raw cash flow, it's always a grind, right? It's a challenge. I got another buddy who has a $50 million net worth, all in highly cash flowing assets, who makes about $5 million a year passively every single year in addition to his income. And he lives exactly like you think he would, doing the most epic things on the planet. And so I look at the two, and you can't help but look at saying, look, you could still do the ranching thing, but you could sell the rest of the land off or do something else if you had to put all that in cash flowing assets, you could live two radically different lives. So it really depends on figuring out what you want. And maybe the ranching lifestyle is everything you ever wanted. And so you're already living your dream. And if so, awesome. I just am more like my other buddy. I look at his lifestyle, and that's the one I'm driving at and the one I want to be on. And so I look at both, and I'm much more the cash flow guy, and that fits. I want the money to come in whether I work or not. It's the mindset around all the things that I've done. So I don't have, more real estate. Land development just hasn't been something I've done. That is a game where the winners absolutely crush it, and some other folks don't. Burr. Man, I don't even know what it is. I think it's super cold when you do it. There is so much talk, and just because someone renamed something that's existed forever, which is called the cash out refinance, and you name it Burr, doesn't make it a new category of real estate investing. It's the same thing it's always been. Burr's not a real thing. It's not real. It's just a cash out refinance. So you're like, I'm going to buy, rehab, rent out, and refinance. Burr, I think I got it right. Buy, rehab, rent it out, refinance. That's been going on for a bit. There's even better ways to set it up. Like when I set up my guidance line when I went out to Huntsville, Alabama, I could even show the construction budget, so they would actually front it on the front end. They would actually finance it on the front end in a note. So there's different ways you could have thought about it. So if you're really sophisticated, there's better ways to do Burr, but it's just a cash out refinance. What I find overwhelmingly, the moment you go take all your money out of the asset, it actually doesn't cash flow at all. And you'll see investors, what no one wants to talk about in Burr, and all the Burr wizards out there, the minute they quote Burr it, in almost all cases, they eliminate all their cash flow. I don't need to Burr, because when I buy a property, I'm actually placing my capital into an investment. Putting your money into an investment is not a bad thing. This whole idea, you got to get 100% of your cash out and all that. Yeah, I look at how quickly I get. If I put $50,000 into an investment and it's paying $400 a month, I look at how long is it going to take me getting $400 a month to get my $50,000 back. I don't say how quickly do I hope values rise so I can get my $50,000 back and now get nothing, and then I can go stick that into something else that doesn't work. I'm not trying to race as fast as I can to do 55 things that don't work. I want to do really smart things that make sense on the front end. So I think Burr, from an investment standpoint, kind of goes against the way I've made money is to find a great piece of real estate, find something that makes sense from a cap rate perspective, and then go finance it with really good long-term debt or pay cash and hold it for a really long period of time. When you do that, you absolutely crush it every single time. You won't be wildly popular on the TikToks and the Insta faces, and probably even here for that matter, but that's what actually works. And if you stay really wealthy, that's what they've done. So I think Burr, it's just a made up thing that didn't exist to get more people super jacked about podcasts. Brother Paul Jameson, how are you, man? I was actually thinking about you the other day. Live and die by rating on short-term rentals. Ratings are tough, man. Someone tears your place apart and leaves. There can be this, I've heard of like kind of almost like this hostage negotiation type situation with reviews. And it is a live and die game. You get a bunch of bad reviews and you are toast. If you need more cash on hand, does the Burr? All right, another question from online on the Intetranet. The cash on hand on the Burr side doesn't really matter, because the question is always, all right, once I go do this and I refinance and I pull that money out, now you just need to analyze the investment again. With the new debt, with the new costs of refinance, no one's talked about that cost of refinancing it. Typically they're buying with hard money. Like, let's set up the average Burr transaction. Guy has no money at all, doesn't know a lot, watched a couple, YouTube shorts and a TikTok video, and now I'm going to go buy an Airbnb, but I'm going to do it as a Burr. So I'm going to buy it. I'm going to use hard money. I'm going to buy it for $300,000. I'm going to put 20% down, and my total cost to get it furnished up and all that, I'm going to spend probably $15,000 to $20,000 just in fees to the hard money lender. Right now, you go back to refinance it long term. You're going to pay another $10,000 in points, fees, title again. Well, you paid $25,000 in fees. You were financing, right? I'm not I'm not Dave Ramsey. You got to go buy all cash, but financing not only the interest rate, but the actual cost, the appraisal, title fees are not the same. I own a title company. Our title fees on a cash transaction are about 25% of the ones on a cash transaction versus a finance transaction with an Alta policy, right? You're not going to have an appraisal if you pay all cash. You may or may not. It could be your choice. I'm a real estate agent in my market, so I'll do my own appraisal or my own internal evaluation for purchase. Right? A lot of my costs are different. I don't have the points and fees on both sides of that, right? So all those costs, people don't realize there's a huge cost of financing. And so, the cash on hand, you're doing that. Then you're trying to get all of your money back out of it. When you look at all of those things, once you're done at the end, the goal being I get all my money out and I hopefully make $100 a month would be a rare scenario. And then I see investors who are arguing kind of to Brennan's point up above, they're doing the whole thing for taxes. No, I'm a W-2 person. And this is my play to go try to get some of my W-2 tax dollars back by putting it into bad investments that have tax advantages. It's not a strategy for being wealthy. It's a strategy for being broke and will hammer you long term. Brother Paul asked, what's the one credit card? If you're going to go business only and you're only going to get one, it's the Chase. I won't be able to show you on the screen because of fraud prevention. The team, anytime I pull out my credit card, the team just freaks out. Let me see if I can find it, the actual name of it here. It is called, the name's not on the front of it. I can actually show it. It is this guy, the Inc. Business Premier. 2 points on absolutely everything on Chase, which is great. Transfers everywhere. And I think it's 2.5% on everything over $5,000. That is the one, Brother Paul. If you're only going to get one for business, that is the one. I love Chase, especially like Hyatt. Points transfer everywhere. It's all, you can use it. You will be able to use that very, very well. Andrew, commercial real estate. Wealthy, having a usually high percent portfolio in commercial because of our cash. Yep, you are. It's funny, Andrew. I think the core reason I think a lot of people started in single family. I think some single families you'll own forever. But I think if you look at the seasoned investor that own 10 to 100 properties over time, single family, I think they all roll up and they end up in commercial. And because commercial's got, is there anything better than a triple net lease on a 20-year corner of Main and Main that's never going anywhere? I don't think so, man. So I totally agree. The wealthy, if you went back 20 years ago to today, what's the biggest difference that people are doing with their money? It's alternatives. 20 years ago, you'd have found that probably the stock market, I don't have a stat. We could find it out. Maybe Cole can grab that and throw it in the chat. Chat, is that real? Did that for Cooper. So if you went back, I think 20 years ago, you would see that 90+% of all the money was invested in the stock market. And today, if you especially look at wealthy families, you're seeing so much more in alts, so much more in real estate, all alternative investments, all, whether that's business, whether that's hard money, natural gas royalties, coins, NFTs, whatever. You're seeing way more into alts, but commercial real estate is just the cash on cash returns are awesome. And it's quiet. It's much, much quieter. Talk to you soon, Andrew. All right. I want to show one more thing as we're wrapping up. If you want to throw any questions, you can as we go through it. I want to talk a little bit about what I learned in 20. So got very specific instructions for the team here. Let's see how fast I go here. I'm getting better. I want to talk a little about what I learned in 2023. I made a post, but I could talk through it differently here. I try to take the end of the year, the start of every year, to look back and reflect and think about what happened in 2023 that I'm proud of. What am I grateful for? And what are the things, if I could go back and I could change? Overwhelmingly in my life, I don't have a lot of things that I want to go back and change. I try to live entirely without regret. But I want to reflect on how could I have improved? How could I have been better as a person, as a father, as a friend? How could I be better? And so here was kind of my thoughts as I thought back about 2023. One thing I think everyone on here, I'd go figure out, how are you actually measuring success in your life? And for a long time, for me, it was a certain amount of money. I had this number. I want to have a certain net worth. The first target is I want to make a certain amount of money in a year. Like I want to make this amount of money. And I believe that when I hit that number, some magic light bulbs and fireworks would shoot off and the world would be an incredible place. And what happened for me was not that. I hit that number and absolutely nothing changed. It was the same as it was the day before, even 3 years before, because nothing in my life had really changed. I kept my expenses relatively fixed, and there wasn't something that I was looking to purchase or do. So all that happened was there was more money in my bank account. I hit that number, and not a lot changed. I had the same the next tier was I had this certain net worth that I wanted to hit. And once I got there, everything would change. And I actually found that wasn't true. Ricardo Simlar wrote a book called The 7-Day Weekend. And Cole, you might be able to drop that link in there because it's not a popular book. I would highly recommend you go read it. Ricardo Simlar, it's The 7-Day Weekend. But it was either in that book that he did, or he did a podcast with Tim Ferriss that was unbelievably awesome. In that podcast, he talked about that your happiness was actually correlated. It was directly linked to your net worth to a certain point. But after a certain point, as your net worth grew, there was no more happiness created. And he made the argument that your happiness grew and as your net worth grew up to 12.5 million. And he wrote this in I think it was early 2000s. So your happiness and your net worth went up at the same kind of pace, or went up together until you got to 12.5 million. And at that point, it no longer went up. And the argument he was making was that at $12.5 million net worth, you back in early 2000s. So let's adjust that today and call it 20 million today because of all of our inflation. So at $20 million net worth, you've got likely the things that you wanted. You've got a second home. You're driving the car you wanted. You're doing the vacations you wanted. If you want to fly private, sometimes you probably are. And you're flying first class. You're doing whatever the things are that you wanted to be doing. You've got those things. And his point was, beyond that $20 million, all you were going to have was more of the same things. The boat or the plane or the vacation got bigger and grander. The house might have gotten bigger, but it was just more in excess. You weren't getting new fulfillment from a new thing that was improving your life. And so I kind of took all of that in and realized, what is my measurement of success that's not linked to money as much? Mine is days that my toes are in the sand. I measure and I think about how many days am I spending per year on a beach with my toes in the sand. And it's a good measurement, right? I calculate it, I look at it, and I find that the more of those days I have, I am happier. And it has become one of the best measurements that I have of how I'm succeeding as a person. Number two, you can get out of business with people and still love the person. I pushed really hard. When I was younger, I was just a total animal. I was a 25-year-old kid running as hard as he possibly could in real estate in 95 other areas. And in the way of being successful, I ran some folks over. And it wasn't that I was competing unfairly. I was just competing aggressively, and I was running, and I wasn't as tactful or as thoughtful in some of my communication. And I would say, I burnt some bridges. And so I've done a little bit I took some of those relationships that I cared about, and I've gone back, and I got to have a really, really cool one this year. And if you're watching, you know who you are. I got to have a really cool experience and get to bring someone back into my life that was really important to me. And we're not in business together. We're just peers. We're friends. But I got a friend back. And so it was a really, really cool experience. I've still got the haters that are out there, and the people that are left that I don't like. I don't want to like them because they're bad people. And I'm great if the losers need to lose out there. I'm totally good with that. I'll be a humble warrior, but I do think it matters that if you did something wrong, or you went down the wrong road, or just go back, go get the relationships, the people that you cared about that meant something to you in the past. Go fix that relationship, go mend it. Life's short, relationship matters, people matter. Good times. This is a great one. This is one that's never been more eye-opening to me. Is good times hide the issues in business. It's really easy to have things hidden in your world. Good times, whether it's your expenses get too high, your budget at home and your business, or there comes to your fitness, your health. It's just good times hide a lot of things. And so get back to what worked, what got you there, get deeper into the numbers, get closer to your business, get closer to your expenses at home, and start asking yourself, do you really need it? The best things I spend money on, or the things I do in my life, actually improve my life. So I'm willing to spend money today only if the product or service helps improve and makes my life better. That is large. I don't buy crap anymore. I'm trying to buy experiences or things that make my life better. One of the crazy things in this, these are just the top 11 things that came to the top of my head. All of the amazing people, whether they're business partners of mine or friends of mine, feels like they've all come into their own. They're all having the most incredible levels of success. I get to work with a lot of them on the day-to-day basis on a Zoom with two of them this morning. And it's so cool to see such incredible people winning. So that has been an awesome part of 2023. This is probably something if I had a tattoo, this would be it, is that life has lots of soft costs. And your costs you have to consider. If you think about it in terms of the context of Airbnb, That is the soft cost, right? The soft cost is your time. So how are you're not thinking about it because it's a soft cost, you can't see it, or the emotional drain of getting your phone blowing up all the time because you're hearing from tenants or whatever that thing is. Life has soft costs. Just be aware of them, know what they are, and the energy that can drain. Even the wrong relationships have a huge soft cost, right? The drain of getting that text and the feeling of like, oh, I don't want to, how do I cancel? How do I not go? Right? So just be aware of the soft costs and try to eliminate them as much as you can. A lesson that I learned again is that real estate really is 99% location. If I added a second sentence to it, investing is all about one single thing. It's about assessing risk. All you're doing in investing is pricing and risk. What do I mean by that? If you want no risk, you put all your money in treasury bills. It pays 5.5% roughly today. There's going to be no risk unless the federal government goes out of money. It's one of the safest investments you could possibly make. If you go out and look at your amount of money and you want to make a 35% return on your money, you have to expose it to undue risk. Meaning if you're going to put $100,000 into an investment that you think would pay 35% plus, the likelihood of you losing all your money is extremely high. That's why the return. So as an investor, all I'm doing is pricing in risk. And how much risk do I want to take with my investments? Spend time learning what trends are occurring. I was kind of I got deep into my own world and space and got a little disconnected from emerging trends. And so it's good to go out and see, yes, Cole, you can be right here. What is happening? What are the trends out there? Even if it's not technology or a product or service that you're into, you need to be exposed to it, embrace it, and at least understand it. Our kids are smarter than we think. It's probably because I'm coming off 2 weeks with my kids. If we're honest, as parents and adults, we really don't know that much more than our kids. I've got a 10, 12, and 15-year-old, and I'm pretty sure that all of my kids are smarter than me at this point. My oldest definitely knows that. My youngest, I think, are starting to figure that out. Number 9, I talk about all the time. I'm one of those weird dudes that absolutely loves his wife. I married my best friend. My wife's my queen. And in 7 minutes, I'm going to go back and jump in that pool with her. But it wouldn't be possible. I could have never done what I did without her. And so I think your partner, your business partners matter. Your life partner matters. If you're a young person watching this, go read the Defining Decade book. The Defining Decade. I don't know who the author is. I forgot. Maybe Cole will drop that in the chat. But the Defining Decade will talk to you about your partner, career capital. But one of the principles is that your partner matters. It'll have more will be made about your success on the partner. It'll weigh more heavily on it than almost any other decision you will make. You pick the wrong partner. Great partner is a sail. It propels you forward. The wrong partner is an anchor that does little more than drag you down, unfortunately. I don't know. I think I spend more time to think and sit. I actually have thinking time. There's a book called The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham, and he talks about scheduling thinking time. If you've ever wondered why all your great ideas come when you're on a run or in the shower or doing something where you're distracted or you're meditating, it's because you're letting your mind just go. You're quieting it all. And that's kind of one of the things of meditation, right? You're calming everything, but your mind, when it gets calm, can start to solve new problems. I started getting massages more regularly, and I have to have my phone near me in the massage. I actually don't want to be by my phone, but I needed to write down the notes of the things that pop up. So I've scheduled thinking time, and it's been something I reflect on, and I use my thinking time. Number 11, read things that are outside of your normal view. I read a lot of things that are on business or an asset class or a certain thing some of our students in our coaching programs need, but I'll also read what does the opposing view say, right? I'll read just random things that are in a totally different field to try to get just a different perspective. So don't get so locked in. So that's kind of what 2023 was. I'm going to save 2024 for a future one. Cole, huge teaser there. And with that, we'll start wrapping up. If you've got any questions, you can throw those in the chat. I am going to fire through these questions. Cole's got May 3rd, 2004. Oh, that must be the date of the book. So yeah, it would have been, I adjust that for inflation brilliantly. The name of the book is The 7-Day Weekend. The name of the book, The 7-Day Weekend by Ricardo Simlar. He wrote a couple great books. Go check out, absolutely go check out his podcast. I think Matt Mocker, the great CEO, mentioned something, said anything after 100 million feels the same. I think it's a lot lower than 100, but could be. I agree with that. Check it out, though. See if that works for you. Ask yourself, right, as you're on your way up, if you've established some level of success, as your net worth keeps growing, does the happiness grow as much? I'll tell you, nothing means more than the first million, and it will improve your world dramatically. There's no doubt about that. So I'll give a couple minutes for the rest of our questions to get in there, but I was excited to do our first live stream of 2024. Actually, you know what, Cole, while the questions are coming in, I will jump back over to, I'll give my 2020. I thought I was going to have just a ton of questions in there, Cole, and I will go right here because it's quick. The top things I'm looking forward to, I wonder if I should make that bigger. That's for next time. For 2024, what I'm excited to see what happens. I am very curious. I think it looks like rates are coming down. If long-term rates for owner-occupied gets to 5%, I think you will see the real estate market go on fire. I think there's a lot of pent-up demand, so that'll be fascinating to watch. I'm curious on the commercial office market. I talked about how are they going to convert office buildings that are now vacant into some other type of real estate investment, right? Is it residential? Is it something else? 3, I think things feel out of balance to me from a cost wage standpoint. Is this just the new normal? Just things seem really expensive as I go out there. My team gives me a hard time that I am a little out of touch with what things cost. It's actually not true. I am very in tune with what things cost, and I think they're very, very expensive. What's the bubble that we can't see, right? Consumer debt's at an all-time high. Subprime auto loans. I mean, car payments are massive. I see people. I heard some other day had like a $1,900 lease, which is, I don't understand it. And so it just seems out of line. I'm curious, what's the bubble that happens there? I want to see how many bucket list items. My mission is to check off bucket list items. How many will I knock off this year? Beach days, can I increase it? Those are things I'm looking forward to in 2024. Time for my book. We'll see about that, brother Paul. I got a lot of things on my list. Tom, Toronto Crypto, greetings from Melbourne, Florida. What's up? Crypto will run in 2024. I think I told my story on here how if I didn't, we got into, if I can't think of the coin, I think it's Kronos or it's crypto.com, whatever their coin is. I own the world's supply of those. So if that thing goes to $5,000 per coin, anyone out there, please find me. I promise you I will hook you up because I own, lucky to my wife, she's a great investor. We invest in what we believe will be loud on the internet, which was right, but wrong financially. Doesn't matter. Great experience, great tax loss. With that, I'm going to wrap our live stream. I appreciate you guys. See you guys all back here next week, every Wednesday, 4:00 Mountain. See you there.